Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Centaureissi and my thoughts revolving around here. We have a lot of information regarding our upcoming plans, so there's actually a lot of you can think about when it comes to whether or not you want to pull Centaureissi. Now, going a little bit different than I have done within my other videos where I kind of read over every single one of the skills, kind of my plan for the future is we'll do that as new characters are released in CN. So like for example, I did that with Yuhi. But when it comes to when they are releasing in English, I'm more going to go over what they're capable of as a whole and kind of glance over the skills and what they do, and then kind of compare them to current available units and their value. So in this case with Centaureissi, her value compared to Exilium within your team, and whether or not she is going to be a good pull. And this is also going to take into consideration our knowledge of future units that we may not have had with in prior ones. So like in this case, we do know that Klukai is going to be coming up next. And if we were to completely believe the leaks, which did predict Centaureissi and then Klukai, the unit coming after Klukai is going to be Mekti. And if Mekti is coming after Klukai, you'll want to know that Mekti is one unit you're going to want to specifically pull for Klukai so that you compare your Klukai, Mekti, and Parita together to build up your full corrosion team. And so that's some things we're going to have to kind of discuss here with Centaureissi and whether or not she is going to be a unit for you to get. Now, right off the bat, for those people who don't want to have to watch the entire video and the thoughts behind it, my answer for the majority of people is she is going to be a skip for now unit. And I say skip for now because she is a unit you're going to want, especially when you get the full burn team going together. The big thing is you're not going to have like that full burn team until we get Vector, and then we get Pari, and then you get Chahua. Once you have that full burn team, that is when she really starts showing her value, especially that once we have that full team, she'll have her expansion key, which is what really brings her out. But that's just the quick answer. For your light, for the light spenders, just skip her for now, get her later on. Most likely it'll be her third rerun, unless they change up how they're doing expansion keys, but pull her once her expansion key comes out. Now, we're going into the actual details for those who want to see why that's kind of my thought process on it. We're going to do that now. The big thing is with Centaureissi, she does have basically someone who is in the exact same role as her in the burn team currently, and that is Exilium. So we need to determine what she does over her. Now, Centaureissi has a lot of similarities to her. The big two things are going to be Overflowing Flame, which is Overburn in our game. It's called Overburn. And then Thermal Recovery, which is a buff when it's on a unit. If they're attacked, they'll get their HP healed by 30% before that. And it can also remove one buff from the attacker, as you can see right up here. And it's considered a burn-type buff, which can trigger different conditions that want you to have burn-type buffs. The biggest one that I can think off the top of my head, I believe, is Krolik's Common Key. If you have her Common Key, if the user has a burn-type buff, they're immune to chill and solidification. So that's one unique reason that having a burn buff is good. But there are other things that trigger it as well. But let's go ahead and just take a quick glance at Centaureissi. And so the first thing we'll see is she has her the standard basic attack. Everybody has that. You have her first skill, Careful Hospitality, which is just basically an attack that deals burn damage to an enemy and then restores HP to the nearest allied unit and applies thermal recovery to them. You have the second one, which is a big AoE. You select a unit within your team. It does an AoE heal to them at 150% of her attack. And then all the people within 3 range of her, but it also does damage to the enemies around her, which makes it an AoE damage. And then you also have Overburn. If the enemies have Overburn, you can remove their buffs. You have her ultimate, that is just a big, massive AoE heal, and applies thermal recovery to your team. But then the biggest thing that really kind of separates her, to me, especially in the future, is going to be within her passive, because she has that capability of applying Overburn to enemies there. And then she also has action support, which is the big key thing, because the entire burn team is all about action support. And she's capable of doing it. Now, it is physical damage that she does, but it's just another support action, which means more stability removal. And I mean, your entire burn team basically does support actions, so you can really rack up removing that stability when you kind of put their teams together. And then the ability to put thermal recovery on allies around within that. Really nice right there. And the big thing that changes her when she does get her expansion key, and why I say she's kind of a big unit you want to get, like she becomes more of a must-get for burn team versus just a nice-to-have in the future, is that her expansion key makes it where she, after activating her afternoon tea break skill, applies refreshing hot tea onto herself for 2 rounds, as well as after activating her special drink, applies perfect guard on all allies for 2 turns. Which, the biggest thing of it is now you have a not receive damage from basic attack or skills with that perfect guard. So it's basically a avoid damage skill. Now, this can be very key depending on certain bosses they bring in the future. The biggest thing being, if we ever have an enemy that basically does an insta-wipe type attack, or a very, very heavy AoE damage type attack, that makes it where your team can just absorb it. And that'll be huge once we get that expansion key, because then there's all kinds of scenarios. Think our current platoon boss, where you want to take a hit from him in order to put a defense reduction on him. Maybe they'll have a boss that does something very similar in the future, where you want your team to actually take uncovered hits, but rather than it being weak, like the current platoon boss, maybe you'll have one where that damage is very, very heavy damage, and you want to be able to ignore that damage. That's where that can come into play. You have the thermal recovery, which basically is a little bit of a healing that goes out to everybody. She has her ultimate, which is an emergency heal to everybody. The big downside without the expansion key is that is what she's good at. She is a very, very good sustain, and she actually suffers from the same thing that Suomi's starting to suffer from in CN, which is she does not provide as much support to make her worth the value of being for your team, especially when it comes to being a generalist sustain. Because Suomi is superior to Centaureissi in pretty much every way, especially if she's V1, when it comes to being a sustain. So if you're pulling for Centaureissi, you're pulling her for the burn team, you're not pulling her as your general sustain, unless for some reason you don't want Suomi and you want to use Centaureissi. That's the only other reason I could see you wanting to get her over her. But Suomi is superior on the sustain side, so you're getting her specifically for burn. And then when it comes to her dupes, the nice thing is that you don't really need her dupes. Her biggest dupe is going to be her V1, because her V1 makes it where when someone triggers her support action, she puts Flame Assault and damage increase on them for a single turn. The negative of that, a single turn equates to 1 attack for units like QJ, because as soon as QJ does her support action, she uses that, she takes advantage of that buff, and then it goes away. So it's not massive. And she is definitely, for me, a do not pull for her dupes, because there's way better dupes in the future for burn, especially. Vector V1's the biggest one, for example, but then you have Chahua, which is the shotgun Sharkry replacement, that she gets good all the way up to V6 on dupes. So if you're wanting to heavily invest into the burn team in terms of dupes, the first unit you're going to want to look at for that is first get Vector's V1, and then you're looking at Chahua, which is probably a lot later down the line. So I wouldn't even worry about her dupes at all. If you want her, you get V0. But now, what is her V0 compared to, say, an Exina at her V6? Because being an SR, you're eventually going to get her to V6 at some point here in the future. Now, Exina has a lot of the same capabilities. The one thing that I think a lot of people, myself, seen in her when we first used her, especially when we were leveling up and doing the boss battles to unlock the tokens to get Sabrina, is we had Suomi for one side, and then the Exina was basically our unit for the other side, and a lot of us, myself included, struggled to keep our team alive with her, because we were we were under leveled to an extent for the content, and she does not have near the sustain that another unit like Suomi has or Centaureissi. And that really is the biggest difference, is Exina cannot sustain at the same level as Centaureissi, but not even close, in my opinion. The biggest thing is we don't need that level of sustain, at least in the current content at this point. She does quite fine, especially now that we're level 60, you're starting to build up your units. If you invest in your Exina, she's going to do quite well for your team. She's able to apply Overburn. If you have QJV3, QJV3's putting out Overburns on her support actions, so that's kind of a moot point with something that Centaureissi is able to do. Another thing is thermal recovery can be applied with Exina as well, which is that little bit of healing before being attacked. So that's nice. She can do Flame Assault on enemies as well. or on your teammates to do damage to enemies. You can get that on your teammates from her, which is something similar that Centaureissi does, especially with her V1. And Exilium has support actions, and while she does not going to do as much damage as Centaureissi, she is going to be able to do some damage here or there with her own support actions and potential for the triggering stuff. And that is why I believe if you are wanting to invest in your burn team right now, just invest in Exilium for now, and then when Centaureissi gets her further improvement with her expansion key and we start to solidify the entire burn team, that's when you're going to want to look at getting Centaureissi, and that will be a decent amount of time in the future. Now, they are changing everything up, but we do know Centaureissi will release again if they do exactly like CN, which is she will come 4 banners later. So right now we have Suomi. We're fully expecting Ulrid to come on this banner. And then we're expecting Macchiato's rerun to come after Ulrid. And then we're going to expect Diane's rerun to come after that one. And then we're going to expect... So if they have a pattern on the second reruns. So if you really want to think about it, you can wait until that rerun. And if they don't add the expansion key then... We do know when they do add the expansion key, that's when they do the third rerun, and that's how they've been doing it in CN, and they really haven't deviated from that on Global. They've just changed up the order of the banners that they're starting comes out. And so that is pretty much that with her. Centaureissi, and then when it comes to your more medium spenders, when I'm talking about common keys, people that are able to invest a little bit more because they're buying the packs, that gives them enough of the cores so that you can actually invest in units specifically for common keys. Hers is an okay one, and I think it's going to have value in the future. The biggest thing is it's HP plus 5%. So like this one's actually going to be a nice one for Springfield, in my opinion, because she likes her HP, as well as the fact that it applies thermal recovery to the nearest ally without thermal recovery, but it has a cooldown of 2 turns. Thermal recovery is a burn buff. It is one way to get a burn buff in your team without even having a burn team. So if you have anyone that needs to trigger burn buffs, this is a way to do it without a burn unit. Although it'll be much more situational. But it's nothing crazy. The biggest combo I kind of see with her common key is kind of something with like Krolik's common key, which is Krolik has a common key where if they have burn type buffs, they're immune to chill and solidification. So you can kind of pair a unit that has this one and then that one, and be a way to have a non-burn team ignore chill and solidification effects. It's going to be extremely situational, but it is there and a potential possibility for a non-burn team to have that. But nothing crazy there, so I wouldn't pull for her for a common key, and it's really, she is just for your burn team overall. And what makes it more complicated, even more reason I'm saying you do not want to pull her now is, like I said, we have Klukai coming out, and even if you're not a big Klukai person, or you're not one of those people that, like me, that I like, Klukai is my favorite unit so far in this game, just based on her aesthetics and her whole gameplay mechanics, let alone meta. It's not all about meta for me when it comes to pulling for her, but I know a lot of people it is. But it is better off to just make sure you can at least get your V0 Klukai over her, just because Klukai pretty much invalidates all your other AoEs to a certain extent. Super valuable on that side. And then after Klukai, it's most likely going to be Mekti, and if you do get Klukai, you're definitely going to want to get Mekti. Biggest thing Mekti has that I really like, she has a bunch of other stuff, is, I believe it's, which one is it down here? Yeah, this part right here that Mekti has changes the damage type of AoE support damage to corrosion damage. This is going to be what's really nice in terms of making your Parita a core member of your corrosion team. You have Mekti, Klukai, and Parita. They do a lot of corrosion damage, and they can just completely clear maps. And so it's better to invest in Klukai over Centaureissi. Now, last part, if you do end up pulling her, because, one reason to pull for her, too, is you're just a waifu collector and you want to get a copy of her now. It's basically, that's one reason I'm getting her now, even though I don't really need her at this point, is I've been spending, so I can afford to get her one copy of her at least. So when it comes to her weapon, if you do end up pulling for her, her weapon is absolutely unnecessary. I would not pull for it. Both the Gorano and Gold Melody are both great on her. The Garano is got, like, basically, it's got buffs to healing, so it makes her better at healing. And then if she has 4 full HP, gives 1 random buff, so she can get a random buff. Nice there. And then extra movement after attacking if they're basically right there on that part. And then she does do support actions. Her support actions aren't anything crazy, but she does do them. So Gold Melody is also another very good weapon for her. And now, you're going to be kind of short in the burn team on Gold Melodies, because I would not give a Golden Melody to Centaureissi until you have first one on your QJ. You need a Gold Melody for QJ. And then a Gold Melody on your Sharkry. So, Gold Melody, unlikely to be used for her. But if you have 3 of them, definitely put the 3rd one on her. Do not start don't start improving the Gold Melody with dupes until you have multiple of her full teams, because Burn Team is one example where you can have 4 of the team members, or 3 of the team members have a Gold Melody, and it's good for all of them. And then kind of, if you're really wanting to invest in Burn Team, it's another situation with the gun, is Vector's gun is way better than it. If you're wanting to have support, Vector's gun's just going to straight up increase burn damage across the board for your team. It's a SMG for Vector. It makes Vector better. I would pull Echoes of Sorrow for her over Centaureissi's, so don't pull Centaureissi's and just save extra pulls to get Echoes of Sorrow when that comes out with Vector. If you're going heavy into Klukai and you're getting her V3, you need to save up for her. You're going to almost certainly want to get her weapon. Mekti has a better weapon, increases corrosion damage dealt, going to be great for her. So there's just... Centaureissi's weapon is just not worth it at all, because the alternate options all do great for her. I mean, you even have her Chahua's shotgun is a better value to burn team than Centaureissi's. So unless you are like a heavier spender, don't even think about... I wouldn't even think about pulling her weapon. It's on the lower... If you had a tier list for weapons, which I haven't really seen one, I would put her assault rifle towards the bottom of the tier list, because it just doesn't provide that much value. But, yeah, that is pretty much my thoughts, kind of just taking a quick look at Centaureissi and my why I think she is going to be an easy skip for now. And it's really key that I'm saying skip for now, because I do think she is, if you're going to invest in the Burn Team, and Burn Team's one of the teams you want to make your best team, which they are one of the best teams in the game, then you definitely want to get that copy of her. Just do it once she comes out down the line. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Let me know if you plan on pulling for her and what your future plans, possibly with Klukai as well as Mekti, are as well. We've got a lot of big pulls coming up, because we still have no clue who's coming after Klukai or Mekti as well. I mean, they could just do... I'm thinking after that, they have to probably bring out like Lena or a Jianji or something, because then those units can't get left too far behind, unless they're really bringing out another big electric unit in CN to bring their value up to entice people to pull for them, which very well might happen. Maybe because Lena and Jianji right now are shown as lower priorities and everybody's going to skip them, they're going to push them back because they know they're bringing out the next big electric unit in CN, and when they release that one in CN, then Global will get Lena and Jianjiu, because you have more motivation to pull for them. But we don't know anything. We could very well see Klukai, Mekti, then Vector, then maybe Springfield, then maybe Chahua. We don't know. They have shown they are willing to change things up quite a bit here now. And so Centaureissi is just a skip for now, because there's just too much potential valuable units coming up that you do not want to miss, especially if you're a free-to-play. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps, and thanks for watching.